Hey everybody, just wanted to do an update on my Synodontis catfish here. If you have not seen my first video about this fish, I've discovered over the last few days that it's been swimming around in a very unusual manner. It's been very listless, it's been hanging out near the surface a lot, and long story short, it's just not behaving normally. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's not behaving normally. And it's not even doing anything necessarily that I would say is bad. It's not showing signs of flashing. It's not showing rapid respiration. It doesn't seem like it's gasping for air. It doesn't have, red swollen gills. He's still hanging out with his buddy, the Tenopoma there. When I came down this morning, he was just hanging there the way it's been doing it lately, which I tend to think of the dead man's float, or in this case, the dead fish float, where he literally just hangs completely limp. And his tail just hangs and droops down into the tank. Even his body tends to sort of droop over. And, literally, if he had arms and legs, you would just imagine him just hanging down towards the bottom. It's just, he hangs there in the water like he's dead. And I've got to actually look to see if the gills are moving. And so that's how my day started, and I've been coming in here and checking on him every so often. And while it may look like he's still kind of doing what I'm describing, the fact that you can see that much animation, he's wiggling his gills around, his fins around, his body's sort of moving in the current a little bit, that actually makes me feel a little better. That's not unusual behavior for this fish. This is what he's supposed to do, is just kind of hang out. He normally would do that sort of underneath the edge of this log. He will kind of, lay in here like that, and that would give him some sort of hiding and some shelter. So why he's suddenly taking towards just lazing around at the top of the tank like that, I'm not really sure. I can appreciate that at a certain age, maybe just want to start hanging out a little more and lazing around a little more than you used to. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know if he's reaching middle age in fish world, but I'm still concerned. I'm not really sure what's going on. In the other video, I addressed a few of the very common things that it could be: water temperature, disease, lack of oxygen, ammonia spikes, all of the usual suspects. And, of course, I got a lot of comments from a lot of people that I swear either read the title and then comment, or they watch the video until an idea pops in their head and then they go and comment and then don't watch any more of the video. But a lot of the comments I got spoke about ammonia, and I already talked about that. There is none. A lot of that talked about oxygen levels. I discussed that. There's no issue with the oxygen levels. Otherwise, we'd be seeing other fish behaving in a similar fashion. And we're not. We're only seeing this catfish behave this way. All the other, tank behavior is normal. Water temperature is fine. It's about 77 degrees as of yesterday. I haven't measured it today, but I don't see why it would be any different today than it was yesterday. No ick. No real changes in the tank. The only changes was that I introduced these little rainbow fish. That's not really much of a bioload increase at all. It's certainly not it's not like an aggressive fish has just moved into the tank and is now harassing this one. I thought about the idea that maybe, when just, you get new neighbors move in, they're loud, they're noisy, they're boisterous, you kind of go to the other side of the property or something. I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be the case. If I'd gotten some fish that were boisterous bottom dwellers that might have been, making a big fuss down here where the catfish would normally hang out, I could see maybe he says, well, the heck with that, I'm just going to go hang up here where it's nice and peaceful and quiet. But none of that stuff's happened. When I added my rainbow fish, they haven't made the tank all boisterous. They haven't, that's what they're doing. They're just kind of hanging out in the bushes down here. How is that impacting my catfish? And my conclusion is that it's not. Which brings me back to why I'm just utterly baffled at this new sort of behavior. I'm getting a little more comfortable with the idea that this might just be new behavior and that there's not necessarily anything wrong. I can't see anything wrong with him. He doesn't seem to be bloated. When he does go down and swim around in the water column, which he does frequently enough, He shows no signs of any kind of bloat or swim bladder issues. You can get a good look at his belly right there. His belly looks fine, but it's actually exposed above the surface of the water. That's actually exposed fish stomach right there. See, and he's fine. I mean, as soon as you touch him or sort of break him out of his little trance, he just goes back to acting normal. And see, that's what he would do before. He would hang out down there. He would sort of tuck himself up under the log into the shade. But when he does swim around, he seems fairly normal. And then watch, I was going to say, look, he's going to roll over on his back and he's going to float right back up to the top there. So I'm really not sure if I'm just seeing sort of a new behavior he's picked up on, or if something's actually going on. It might be something is changing with the fish, but it's not necessarily anything to worry about. A lot of people did tell me that the average lifespan of these in captivity is expected to be about 8 to 10 years. And he's 6 now, and I keep saying he. I don't know if it's a male or female. I do know my Tenopoma's male. So when I say he in reference to my Tenopoma, I know that's a male. There is a way you can tell whether a Tenopoma is male or female. I have no idea how to tell whether this fish is a male or female, so I just sort of say he. I mentioned yesterday that there was some what appears to be gill curl. I don't know if we'll be able to see it with him upside down in the dark like that. But I did have a couple people mention the gill curl, and they said that, that's a sure sign of ammonia poisoning, etc., etc. And I also mentioned gill curl in my other video, and I talked about that and why I'm not concerned about that, because that fish has had that gill curl since the day I bought it. It's a PetSmart fish. If you look at its tail fin, you can see how it's got that sort of it just sort of looks like a line right there, but that's actually a fin that sticks sideways out off of its main fin. It's got this sort of weird little growth that sticks out there. That's been on there since day one when I got it as a wee little thing. I mean, this probably wasn't even an inch long when I got him. And his gills have always been sort of rolled out and curled out like that. I've wondered about that since day one, too. I used to be concerned about it because it just looks so unusual. But it's never changed. It's always been like that. And if after 6 years I'm now going to start having issues with gill problems, then that's genetic. That's a congenital defect. That's got nothing to do with tank conditions. So I don't think that gill curl is anything to worry about either. I think that's just an odd way that this fish looks. I don't think it's got anything to do with the gills itself. I think it just has an unusual sort of rolled out looking gill flap on it, and that's just how this fish looks. So that still brings me back to square one of I have no idea what's going on with this fish, or if anything's going on with it. I just really don't know. But I always keep everybody updated on anything that's happening that's, of particular interest. And this is of very great interest to me. This is one of my favorite fish. It's one of my oldest fish. I've seen a lot of fish come and go over the years, but this one's going to be a heartbreaker. And, of course, when I lose my Tenopoma down here, which, eventually that day will come, he's probably over 6 years old. I got him at the same time, so they're probably 2013 is when I got them. I started my YouTube channel in 2014, and my Tenopoma here was still like half-grown adolescent size when I did that. So if that was 2014, I'm going to guess that I got him and I got my catfish here in about... Alright, looks like I need to replace one of the lights in this tank. So that'll be a project for later today, I suppose. I guess the fish probably just think there's a lightning storm or a thunderstorm going on. Actually, I say that as though fish think. I don't think they really are paying much attention to the lighting. Anyway, 2013 is probably when I got him. So that puts him at about 6 years old-ish, in that neighborhood. I definitely don't think that's old age for this catfish. And I'm not sure about the Tenopoma, but I think like 5 to 7 years is what most people will say on the Tenopoma. Now, keep in mind that both that Tenopoma and this catfish as I keep saying, are fish I've had since way back in the beginning. And way back in the beginning, I did a lot of experiments, and I did tons and tons of water changes, and I used to regularly dose my tanks with hydrogen peroxide. And, you know, I went through all of my experimental stuff and all of my learning curve, and all of that happened with these two fish being in a tank. So, you know, any damage or abusive type behavior, or any, you know, damage that might have happened as due to hydrogen peroxide exposure. See, now we're getting back into more of that sort of dead man's float that I was talking about. He's just kind of hanging there. But all that stuff, you know, these fish have lived through all that, and, you know, are still around to, you know, tell their tale, I suppose. So, you know, if I don't get a full maximum lifespan out of these fish, I'm not going to be that surprised. But at the same time, I really do think that 6 years is a ridiculously short period of time, and I'm in no way chalking any of this behavior up to this fish, you know, kind of getting old and wearing out. I've seen fish get old and wear out and slow down and eventually die, and they look like what you'd expect. You know, when a person gets old, you can see that they're getting old and slowing down and wearing out. You know, fish are no different. You know, they start looking old and start wearing down and slowing down, and, you know, this is showing no signs of that. It's just, I cannot imagine what is going on with this fish and why he's acting this way. It's baffling me. So anyway, there's today's update. As I said, I will, you know, keep you updated on it. Again, this is something that's of great interest to me, and I know a lot of my viewers out there really like this fish. I've had a lot of people tell me that this fish actually inspired them to get their own Synodontis, which I think is awesome. It's a great fish, and anybody who got one for themselves, I'm sure, is very happy with their purchase. So again, it'll be a sad day if anything really does happen to this fish. So anyway, make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of the updates on this fish or this tank or any of the other stuff I got going on down here in the fish room. It's always something. And then today we'll probably be doing a video that'll be a really exciting video about how I changed the light bulb. So make sure you're subscribed. You won't miss any of that. And then don't forget, of course, this is my 125 gallon tank. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon on the next one.